you can get a ticket. Yeah. Hello and welcome to the show. Today, my guest is an Englishman who was actually born here in Germany, grew up in Britain, and now lives here in Berlin. Max Richter is one of the most celebrated contemporary composers around today. He's also one of the most prolific, composing concert music, operas, ballets. He's done art and video installations, multiple film, theatre and television scores, and a series of acclaimed solo albums. In his latest work, I think he's most probably invented a new genre, as he has recomposed Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Hallowed ground indeed, if I may say. We'll come to that in a little while. But first, I do want to talk about your nationality, because I've also read that you love Marmite and cricket, right, which I thoroughly approve of, and that couldn't be more British. But very much the Englishman, but born here, both parents German. So how come you're British?
Well, we moved over when I was a young child. And I, went to school in England, did all my studies in England, and, sort of English cultural life. That's been, sort of my story. And we came back here in the way that a lot of British artists live in Berlin. So it is a bit of a puzzle for everyone, but yeah.
But I also heard that your parents, your German parents, spoke English to you all the time. Is that...
We spoke English really as a way for them to learn English, because obviously for kids it's easy. We sort of spoke English in order to help our parents learn English in a funny sort of way.
That's a kind of
it's a
topsy-turvy, because I know the rule, as I'm married to a German, I spoke English to my parents, she spoke German to them. And you sort of turned that on its head a bit.
A little bit, yeah. I mean, we spoke a sort of hybrid, honestly. I think a lot of multilingual families do that. They sort of have their sort of private language, which is a bit of everything all mixed up. But yeah, we spoke mostly English.
And what do you speak now with your kids?
We speak English at home, although the kids themselves will speak German to one another a lot of the time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So. And you've been here 5 or 6 years?
Yeah, roughly 5 years. Yeah.
So the kids, OK. But presumably, you have a German passport?
No, British passport. Yeah.
Well...
Yeah, it's all very confusing.
How does that come about?
Well, actually, the thing is, the national service thing prompted that. So when I was 18 or 17 or whatever it was, we got the letter saying, please report for, national service. When I was living
in
Germany. And you see, and I didn't really fancy that. So I thought, right, I'm out of here. I sort of did a British naturalisation at that point. Yeah.
OK.
Yeah.
And do your parents mind?
No, I don't think so.
No? So you're a Brit. We've established that.
We got that.
Do you feel particularly British here in Germany?
I do a little bit, really. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, because all my sort of cultural references and my way of thinking about the world is formed by British culture, I would say, I do feel that, probably.
Can you give us an example of...
Well, I mean, having grown up with British TV and, like, British music culture, British bands, all my sort of, my sort of cultural point of view, my references are Brit. So, yeah.
But there isn't something like when you go to the supermarket, sort of mundane things like that where...
Yes, I mean, I don't know, actually. Funnily enough, I mean, food culture is really important, I think, in identity. And obviously Brit and German food culture is quite different. And there are sort of things I dimly recall from my, early childhood when we were still visiting Germany a bit more, things like currywurst and stuff, where you just think, yes, I sort of connect to that. But actually, overwhelmingly, my sort of food culture is British as well, so it's all sort of bangers and mash, basically.
Now, you moved here 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got that wrong. Why? What was about the move?
We'd lived in London for many years, so sort of, 15 years, 20 years. And then when the kids came along, we were living in Stoke Newington, which at that time was pretty lively, and we kind of thought we'd probably want to get out of there. So we moved up to Edinburgh, where I'd originally studied. I love Edinburgh, it's a wonderful town, it's an amazing place. But I found I had to be away a lot for work purposes, sort of recording and stuff. And so then it sort of, the question came up, shall we go back to London? Where can we, where could we actually go where I didn't have to travel so much, or wouldn't have to travel so much? So really it's London, it's New York, it's Berlin. And, New York seemed a bit of a stretch, kind of, and then we thought, well, everyone else is going to Berlin, why don't we go to Berlin?
Everyone else is going to Berlin?
Well, so many musicians and artists and, sort of creative folks all flocking to Berlin. So we thought, well, we might as well just try and, give that a go.
OK, it's as simple as that.
As simple as that.
We'll talk more about growing up in England later, but I want to move forward briefly now to... you've recomposed a classical music treasure, Vivaldi's Four Seasons.
That's
it. How did it come about, and did you have any reservations about doing it?
Yes, I mean, it came about really through a couple of things coming together, sort of happy accidents. The first thing is that for years I've been thinking about the sort of problematic nature of the Four Seasons. On the one hand, it's a great masterpiece, fantastic music, revolutionary, full of great tunes. It's obviously wonderful music, and I fell in love with it as a child. On the other hand, I was hearing it mostly on hold on the phone or in adverts or shopping centres, and I just sort of fell out of love with this music, which was really like a disappointment for me. So I thought, maybe it would be, a chance to reclaim it, actually writing a new path through this landscape, through this, this sort of well-loved thing that we all know so well. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing is that DG, Deutsche Grammophon, already had this series, Recomposed, where they'd invited various people to remix records, and people like Carl Craig, and had done sort of remixes. And so I thought, oh, well, that could fit together. And then I sort of started the process a little bit, in a sort of remix way. But then it became very clear that it was impossible to do it that way, and I had to actually rewrite it. So that's what I did.
OK. OK, we'll talk some more in a minute, but I think it's time to hear some of my guests' new Four Seasons. And this is the CD of Max Richter's Four Seasons, which I have to say I put on my CD player with great trepidation some weeks ago. I admit I'm a little pompous and I had a pretty cynical attitude to it, until I heard it. And I have to say I was blown away. It's amazing, and it is a wonderful work. And it could be yours. Write to us at the usual address, which is on your screens right now, insight@dw.de. Indeed, the copy I have here on offer is signed by the composer himself, who's with me now. As I said, I did put it on thinking, have you had any stick from your peers?
Not from my peers, actually, because I think, mostly musicians have similar ambivalence about the Four Seasons. We all know it, every note. And we do hear it an awful lot, and people play it an awful lot. So there is a sort of, notwithstanding the fact that it's an amazing piece of music, there is a kind of, oh no, it's the Four Seasons. So actually, I think people understood that, my kind of impulse to rework it and to revisit this material. And I think, as far as listeners and audience goes, some people love it, some people don't love it. I don't think we can really take responsibility for that. It's always like that, really. So,
I mean, there's a couple of quotes. I'll just read one because I want to ask a question. It says, "It's a masterpiece. I've ascended to heaven with this recomposition."
OK.
It's considered heresy in our day and age, but in Bach's time, it wasn't considered so. Now, that is kind of my question. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean...
Were they all recomposing each other?
Absolutely.
Then?
I mean, Vivaldi did it himself, and then Bach reworked everything he could get his hands on, Handel the same. And composers ever since, and before then, actually, have always, involved themselves with pre-existing music. Right. In a way, I mean, it's no different from a covers band. nowadays, or I think if we love music, then it's part of our process. You want your take on material, and it's very natural, I think.
How did you? I mean, they said in the piece 10% remains. It could be maybe 15%. You told me before the show you haven't counted the notes.
Yeah,
but I've heard the whole thing,
yeah.
and the essence of Vivaldi is there. How come if 90% has gone?
Yeah, well, it's. I mean, I guess it's maybe to do with my attitude to the original. I love the original, so I wanted it to feel recognisably, his universe, but sort of maybe refracted through my sort of musical language. So all the Vivaldi DNA is intact, I think. The idea of the sort of that very dynamic sort of music, the sort of pattern-based music he has, and also the wonderful melodies. So those things are all kind of intact, but reconfigured and translated into my own musical language.
And I mean, Daniel Hope, we've got a picture of him here with Andre de Ridder.
Yes.
Daniel Hope on the right. He said, I can't remember the exact quote of the piece, but he thought, he was sort of.
Yeah.
But how did you change his attitude then?
Well, I just played him the music, and I think he sort of had an intuitive understanding of what I was trying to do, and I think he could see that I wasn't trying to break it or sort of do violence to the original, but it was more about sort of revisiting it and trying to see it in a new light.
Okay. I know you, or I know you now, but I knew of your name because of Waltz with Bashir, an extraordinary, disturbing, if you like, documentary film made by Ari Folman back in 2008.
Yeah.
And this is an animation, and I imagine you do a lot for film, but I imagine you get the sort of completed film most of the time.
Yes.
And then you write music. But how did it come about with Ari Folman? I think you were quite heavily involved.
Yes, well, I mean, the story started with Ari that I just got an email, hello, I'm Ari Folman, la la la, I'm making this film, animated documentary about Shabra and Shatila. And it's like, oh, really? Okay.
The Lebanon War.
Yes, exactly. And but then accompanying this email, there was a tiny little animated clip of sort of 2 minutes. And I just, when I saw it, I was just stunned. It's an amazing, amazing piece of work already, And then we got talking, and it transpired that Ari had written the screenplay listening to one of my records, sort of in 4 days and repeat, So he said,
your
look...
music on repeat all the time.
So then he said, well, look, you're already sort of a part of this film, so you just got to do it. And honestly, I was really very excited about the project from the beginning, so, it was a great fit.
Was it, because it is a disturbing film,
yes,
especially
it is.
towards it, was it disturbing to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, it takes a lot out of you emotionally.
See bits again and again, the unpleasant bits.
Yes, I mean, it takes a lot out of you emotionally, but also the thing is, with a project like that, it seemed so worthwhile because it's politically and socially actually really important to sort of, address those sorts of questions. And it was such an interesting and kind of illuminating way the material was treated. I just thought it was fantastic.
Another movie, this is a Scorsese movie, Shutter Island, and a very interesting collaboration with somebody who died some time ago, Dinah Washington.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Or was that your work?
Yes, that's partly my work. What happened was that Scorsese had this film Shutter Island, this project, and he works with Robbie Robertson of the band as his music supervisor. And they work on the score together. And actually, the entire score for Shutter Island is assembled from contemporary classical works. It's very interesting, the music. And part of that was one of my pieces, which appeared a few times in the film and became a kind of a theme. And then they had this idea to make a sort of a mashup with this wonderful Dinah Washington song, This Bitter Earth, for the end sequence of the film. And I was a bit sceptical when I heard about this. And I thought, oh no, I'm going to have to turn down Martin Scorsese. But anyway, so they sent us the file, and I pressed play, and I was just, transfixed. I mean, it's amazing. I think the combination, absolutely extraordinary. So yeah, that was a wonderful moment.
I mean, are you careful about who uses your music?
Well, yes. I mean, it's a balance. We write music because we would like our music to be heard. So that's, obviously that's the first thing. But then there are other things where, you get a request and you just think, well, no, I don't, whether that's sort of aesthetic or political or, whatever reasons. I mean, sometimes you just don't want it to happen.
Yeah. I mean, but if Coca-Cola offered you...
Well,
we won't go there. I want to talk about your childhood because it said early on in the piece that you were born in Hameln.
That's right.
Which is famous for one thing.
That's
really.
Right. The Pied Piper.
The Pied Piper of Hamelin, as they say in English. Do you have any association with the town anymore?
Not really. I have just a sort of hazy childhood memory, but no.
Grandma and Grandma aren't there?
No,
they're not there. No. Okay, so school in Britain, and I read that you were always composing in your head, even as a child.
Yeah.
And so did you think that's what everybody was doing?
I did, actually, until I was a little bit later on. I realised that this wasn't normal. This idea of sort of you'd be sitting in a room and sort of shuffling around bits of music in your head, This was somehow not... I just assumed everyone did that.
I mean, are you hearing... before we started the show today, I noticed you sort of...
Well, I'm sort of always...
shadow piano playing.
Part of my brain is probably always scribbling away somewhere, yeah.
Does it get annoying?
Not really. I mean,
you make a good living out of it.
I mean, honestly, I feel very privileged. I feel like it's an activity I love to do. It's maybe my first language to some extent, and I'm very lucky.
Yeah. Growing up in England, in the 1980s, if I've got my decade right.
Yep, pretty much.
Classical music, studying. But there was also, there was quite some interesting music going on in England. Electronic music, punk. Yeah. Punk was perhaps a bit before, but it was still there. Were you into that as well?
Completely, yes. I mean, I remember as kids at school when the first Sex Pistols record came out, and we all sort of went off and, having saved our pocket money, and went and bought this sort of naughty record, which we weren't allowed to hear. And that was pretty exciting, It's pretty exciting.
Yeah. But I'm another generation where we used to... Ours weren't naughty records, but I remember buying Beatles records and Led Zeppelin, Deep Purple in rock. And it'd be interesting for young people to hear today that we used to put it on and hear the entire album.
Yeah, completely. And then turn it over and hear the rest.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
Now, I know there's some memorable German music that we're going to play in right now.
Okay.
That I wonder if you recognise this. Can we hear this right now? Silence. It's not coming on.
Ah, yes.
Do you know what it is?
I do, yes. It's Kraftwerk.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But it's very minimal, if I'm
It's very bizarre.
And very bizarre, but it, I believe, really struck you.
It did, completely.
As a teenager, was that?
Yes. I heard this on the TV, and I would have been in my early teens. And this was a time when electronic music was really a very, very small, sort of almost like a secret world, and there was hardly any of it around. And I heard this record on the TV program, I don't even know what it was anymore. See, that's that bass line started there. So good. Anyway, so I heard this thing, and it was a sort of light bulb went on above my head, it's like, and from a sort of musical point of view, I've got two lives. I've got my life before I heard this and my life after I heard this. It was like that. It really was. Because the thing about that sound, those instruments, the bass line, I just had no idea what was making that sound. I didn't know what a synthesizer was. I know that computers really weren't around much. They were only in sort of Star Trek.
Of course, no.
None of this stuff existed. Yeah. So then began a sort of teenage research project to find out about this stuff. And then, of course, finally sort of acquiring the record and then putting it on and thinking, what's going on? You know, it starts off with this sort of car starting up. And it was just an amazing experience.
And change your life musically?
Completely, yes. I mean, the first thing that I then wanted to do was go out and try and buy a synthesizer. So, unfortunately, of course, they cost about as much as a house in those days. I mean, literally.
Yes, they did.
I mean, literally. So then it was, you know, this sort of, how on earth do I get my hands on this stuff? So I bought sort of kits, you know, you'd buy your kit and there'd be like a bag of components which you had to solder together.
But you collect things like that?
Well, I do now, yeah. But I mean, I literally sort of made these things in my bedroom with you know, soldering iron. And,
okay. We must move on, and I know I want to ask you in the next bit about our questionnaire that we send out. But you put down as the coolest living German as Anselm Kiefer.
I did.
Briefly, why?
Well, I think his work is so rich and interesting, and it's so connected into society, cultural history. It's very complete. You know, it's a huge body of work and important, and deals with, you know, the big questions. Plus, of course, it's incredible, you know, just in a purely visual point of view.
Well, we'll have a look. Anselm Kiefer works on a grand scale most of the time, so an exhibition of a large number of his works is rare. One of the biggest in recent years was in Baden-Baden back in 2011, where 33 of his works were exhibited in the Burda Museum there. Have a look.
Anselm Kiefer's works are always monumental and enigmatic. Mysterious landscapes made of melted and resolidified lead. The artist's symbols are always unmistakably his own. He found his own pictorial language early in his career and has remained faithful to it. Ships as the playthings of destructive powers spouting rusty flames. The artist tests borders and looks beyond the surface.
People need to have very clear borders. We can't exist without restricting ourselves. Our skin is our border. But if we limit ourselves too much, we get stiff and can't think properly. Artists maybe test their limits more than other people do.
Kiefer's star pictures deal with the relationship between the Earth and the cosmos. The underlying idea is that each living being on Earth corresponds to a star in the heavens. Nature, religion and mythology are Anselm Kiefer's central themes. The pictures shown here span 3 decades. The theme of this picture, the Fertile Crescent, is the Tower of Babel that collapsed when its builders started speaking in tongues. A documentary offers a rare insight into Kiefer's work methods. It was filmed in his studio in France.
Maintenant, allez derrière et secouez fort, une fois fort.
I'm like a child. I play with my machines, with my diggers and ladders and lifters. It's a big playground.
A playground that more closely resembles a factory than an artist's studio. Kiefer calls it creative handicraft when he melts minerals into lead, his favourite material. An airplane made of lead, so heavy that it could never fly. Combined with seeds from a sunflower from which new life could sprout. Kiefer is drawn to paradoxes and still has many riddles in store.
I have lots of pictures from the 70s packed away in containers that I'll finish up eventually.
Those works will surely give viewers food for thought one day.
Now, you've done collaborations and art installations yourself and composed a lot of ballet music. And I've always wanted to ask a composer this. When you're composing ballet music, how do you approach that? Do you have movement in mind as well? that you might suggest the choreographer or not?
Well, you have to. It's an interesting one, actually. I mean, the conversations I've had with choreographers are mostly along the lines of, don't think about the movement, just do your thing, and then we'll figure it out. Because in a way, if you're thinking about the physicality too much, then it becomes simply illustrative, and it's, you know, you want the music to be music.
So do you just compose music, or this is dance? This is music for dance.
Well, I suppose you have in the back of your head the idea that someone's going to be moving, you know. So you can't have, you know, a sort of 20-minute drone. That is going to be problematic, you know. That is going to be a problem. Okay. But, you know, within limits, you know, I think you just do your thing.
Okay. Yeah. Back to the questionnaire. Dead Cool German, Gustav Mahler. You've got a lot to choose from in this country.
There's plenty of good. Yeah.
So, but why Mahler?
Well, Mahler is a composer who I sort of fell in love with in my teen years, and I think that's not uncommon, you know, because I mean Mahler has this incredible emotionality, you know, fantastic tunes, very ambitious, you know, but also Mahler's music is phenomenally well put together, you know, just the way the orchestra is dealt with. And the guy, I mean, he was a class act.
He's been recomposed too by Matthew Herbert.
That's right, he has.
And?
He has. I haven't heard it.
Okay.
No,
okay.
I just thought. No,
I wonder whether there was another connection, but I think I've overdone my research because Mahler had an affair with one Johanna Richter.
Did he?
No relation.
No relation.
No, I've rather overdone it there, I think. Now, ingenious German invention you put down as the LP record.
Yes.
Emil Berliner, founder of Deutsche Grammophon,
yes, indeed.
of course, indeed. And you are a great lover of vinyl, I believe, and analogue things. Do you record now in
Yes, we record. I've always recorded on tape. And for me, you know, the CD is it's a sort of provisional medium. You know, I'm not interested in CDs, honestly. I never really liked the sound of them.
Why is that? They're too clean?
There's something about the way, when the music is turned into data, it just, for me, it doesn't have the same texture. And it's also to do with maybe how I experienced music at the beginning. You know, when I started listening to records, you know, probably the first record I ever sort of consciously played was Abbey Road, you know, it's the Beatles. And that is it's an analog object recorded on tape. You drop the needle and you hear the sound, you know, that's it. That's the ritual. And that's one of the things that got me excited about music.
It was a reverential thing, wasn't it?
Yeah,
putting on the
absolutely.
record.
And it's to do with actually the physicality of it. You know, it's fragile. You have to sort of pay attention. Yeah.
A good German characteristic, you put directness, and you put irritating German characteristic.
Also directness, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it cuts both ways, doesn't it? You know where you are, but, you know, sometimes you know where you are.
Okay. And best kept secret in Germany, do you remember what you put?
I'm not sure, actually. I don't know what I put.
It was a drink.
Oh, Rhabarberschorle, is that it? Yeah.
Which would be rhubarb.
It's a kind of rhubarb spritzer. They have plum spritzers as well, which are quite good news. Yeah.
And you're very fond of that.
Yeah, it's great.
And
it's a good invention, I think.
It is a secret. I didn't even know.
Is it a secret? Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Well, no, I think so. And a favourite German word, you put down Fernweh, which is having itchy feet.
Well, it's sort of...
It's
a homesickness for somewhere far away. It's a sort of... It's the kind of yearning to be elsewhere.
So, do you like the word, or is that
no,
you?
It's
yearn?
No, it's not me, really. But I just think it's such a clever and sort of funny, and there's something characteristically German about that concept. You know, it's sort of quite complex, but quite structured. Yeah. I like that idea.
Yeah. And the best thing about living in Germany is your neighbourhood.
Yes.
Why?
Well, I mean, we live in Mitte, and it's just very, very lively and interesting. And there's, you know, when I go to the studio from my house, I pass probably about 20 art galleries, and there's just stuff to see, and it's really, really interesting. Yeah.
Okay, and here it is, a neighbourhood like some others here in Berlin, but with a lot of character and a lot of green areas as well. there is some criticism of that Mitte, where you are, has become sort of gentrified, and you know, it's just full of rich people now. Do you?
I think it's a real mix. I mean, you hear every sort of language on the street, you know, all different, very multicultural, which I really like, you know, having spent a long time in London, you know, I like that mix. Yeah, I mean, I think it's, there's everything, really. You know, the room for all sorts of folk there.
And you find it good for you've got 3 kids.
Yep.
Is it a good place to be for them too?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, they go to school locally. It's, you know, they walk 5 minutes to their school. I mean, you try doing that in London, you know, that's...
Yeah. Well, I read that 2 of them were born within shouting distance of the greatest football ground in the world.
Indeed.
Arsenal.
Indeed, yes.
Yes, and I hope they still support them.
They do, well, sort of lukewarm bit, yeah.
Just a quick plug there, because
yeah,
they
that's
happen to be my team as well. But actually, what do your kids feel? Do they feel English, German, or maybe European? Or
I think they take their identity mostly, actually, from the time we spent in Edinburgh, because those were really their formative years. You know, they were born in London, but then, you know, when they were 3 or 4, we moved up to Edinburgh.
But have you got 3 kids wandering around the house speaking with strong Scottish accents?
They don't have the Scottish accents, but they do. I think they associate. You know, that's their sort of their epicenter, if you like. And certainly the 3rd one was born there, so she's kind of technically a Scot anyway. So. Yeah.
And they're happy here.
Yeah,
it all works well.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder, you moved here to Berlin, you've said your reasons, but has your composing changed with sitting in another country, hearing different things? I don't know.
Possibly. I mean, I
must
think...
be influenced by what's around you to a certain extent.
I mean, possibly. I mean, I think composing is a strange thing because it, you know, your raw material is sort of inside your head, so you carry that around anyway. And actually, the thing I draw on most, probably like most composers, is music history. And music history is kind of the same wherever you are. You know, it's things I've heard, it's my own biography, it's pieces of musical composers I admire and records I love. And, you know, these are all things which feed in, and to some extent they're not really dependent on place in the same way as perhaps other things. You know, if I were a painter or you know, someone dealing with the visual world, that would be perhaps a much bigger influence. And
do you mind hearing music everywhere? Because it is everywhere.
It is.
I wondered, as a composer, again, I thought, oh, maybe you need a bit of silence sometimes.
I'm fairly tolerant, I think. I mean, I know lots of musicians who are much more sort of, you know, switch that off, I can't be in that room, there's some racket going on. But I'm sort of interested in music generally, so it mostly doesn't bother me.
One, I think, a surprise for you, we've got a picture here of a building here in Berlin.
Fantastic.
Which I believe is one of your favourite buildings.
I love that building, yes. It's Haus der Kultur und der Welt, which is, it's from that era of incredibly optimistic modernist building, sort of post-war. And it's a wonderful place, and they have a fantastic cultural programme there. But the building itself is something so sort of elevating about the architecture. I think it's fantastic. Yeah,
it is an extraordinary place. And unfortunately, you can't see it like that anymore because the Bundestag is all around it.
Yeah.
Now. But you've done so much. You have a prodigious output. Are there unfulfilled ambitions?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I think working in music it's a sort of continuous process. You know, obviously I've done a lot of different projects, but actually really it's all just one project, you know, and I'm just sort of writing the next bit. And I enjoy it very much, and I'm just going to sort of keep doing that, I think.
And do you think you'll recompose again?
No. Recompose again.
Will you recompose?
No. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, you know, the Vivaldi is really a special case for me. I don't have that same impulse about any other existing work, you know. That was a one-off.
Okay. Well, we've come to the end. We haven't managed to talk in any detail at all about Marmite and cricket.
Oh, well.
Well, but we'll have to do that another time.
Sure.
Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for this. This is wonderful work. And if you're interested, do write to us at insight@dw.de. One lucky person can get this signed by the composer himself. Max Richter, thank you. Thank you for watching, and join us again at the same time next week. Until then, bye-bye.